The moment Diddy saw 50 Cent walk into that courtroom, his face said it all. Eyes wide, jaw clenched, hands shaking under the table. This wasn't the cool, collected music mogul we've seen for decades. By day 3 of the trial, witnesses reported that Diddy completely lost his composure when 50 Cent publicly announced his support for Cassie. What happened next shocked everyone in the courtroom and could change everything about this case. The courtroom was silent, unnervingly silent. No camera flashes, no whispers, just the rhythmic shuffle of a dozen people turning their heads at once as the doors opened. And in walked 50 Cent. Diddy saw him before anyone else did. His eyes locked onto the man he's mocked, baited, and battled in public for nearly 2 decades. But this wasn't just another celebrity appearance. This was a statement, a warning, maybe even a reckoning. Within seconds, the tension snapped. Witnesses say Diddy's face turned ghost white. His jaw clenched so hard you could see the muscle twitching from across the room. Hands, once resting calmly on the table, began to tremble. He whispered something to his lawyer, then fell back in his chair, eyes wide, chest rising and falling like he'd just run a mile. Panic. Security moved in. The judge called a recess. Reporters scrambled out of the courtroom. But the message had already detonated. 50 Cent wasn't just there to spectate. He was there to take a side. And he made that crystal clear. I believe Cassie. Day 3 of Sean Diddy Combs' civil trial was already loaded with emotion. But no one, not even the sharpest court analysts, could have predicted the fallout that would hit when one of hip-hop's most feared figures collapsed under the weight of a single man's presence. This wasn't about trolling anymore. This was personal, historic, a public dismantling of power in real time. And if you think you've seen it all, wait until you hear what happened next. In this video, we're unpacking every twist, every gasp, and every implication behind that courtroom moment. What led to it, what it means for the case, and why 50 Cent's explosive support for Cassie might be the final blow in a legal battle that could change everything. Because the truth is, when giants fall, the ground shakes. For decades, Sean Diddy Combs built an empire out of image. He was the mogul who couldn't miss. Bad Boy Records, Ciroc, Revolt TV, Sean John, hit after hit. He didn't just dominate music. He defined it. And in doing so, he cultivated an aura of untouchability. Lawsuits came and went. Rumors floated. But nothing stuck. Until now. Cassie Ventura, once his protege and long-term partner, shattered that illusion in late 2023 with a civil lawsuit that ripped the curtain down. Her accusations, spanning years of alleged abuse, coercion, manipulation, and surveillance, hit the industry like a wrecking ball. Suddenly, the man known for parties, champagne, and lavish lifestyle was being painted as controlling, violent, and dangerous. The lawsuit didn't just spark headlines, it sparked a movement. Other alleged victims came forward. Whispers turned to confessions. The public mood shifted. And the people who once laughed off the conspiracies started to lean in. What if it wasn't just smoke? What if the fire had been burning for years? And now we're here, inside a federal courtroom on the 3rd day of a trial that could redefine the power dynamics of the music world. Diddy isn't just defending his reputation. He's fighting for his legacy, his empire, his freedom. But as much as this case is about him, it's also about something bigger. Because this moment, this trial, sits at the crossroads of celebrity culture, gender politics, and accountability. The Me Too era came late to hip-hop, but it's here now. And it's not just Cassie. It's the dancers, the assistants, the producers, the silent witnesses whose stories never made headlines. The timing couldn't be more critical. We're living in an age where silence no longer protects the powerful. Social media has weaponized exposure. And the courtroom isn't the only place judgment is being handed down. Every video clip, every quote, every collapse gets replayed, dissected, and streamed to millions. So when 50 Cent, one of the only figures in hip-hop bold enough to challenge Diddy publicly, walked into that courtroom, the stakes shifted again. He didn't just show support. He flipped the narrative. He turned Cassie's fight into a full-on reckoning. This isn't just a scandal. It's a seismic shift. And what happens in this courtroom may not stay confined to its walls. Before we unpack what happened on day 3, we need to understand the key figures inside that courtroom, because this isn't just a legal battle. It's a war between powerful people with long histories, deep grudges, and everything to lose. He's not just a defendant. He's the defendant. A towering figure in music, fashion, and business. For decades, Diddy has portrayed himself as a self-made mogul, grinding from Harlem hustler to Forbes-listed billionaire. Bad Boy Records made stars out of Biggie, Maze, Faith Evans, and others. Ciroc turned him into a nightlife king. He knew how to play the game, how to shape culture, and how to stay clean while swimming in scandal. But now? Now he's not in control. Now he's in a room where his fame doesn't shield him, where a judge, not his team, sets the rules. The man who once moved with bodyguards and entourages now sits in a suit, silent, staring straight ahead. And the allegations stacked against him could destroy everything he built. She was more than a singer. She was Diddy's partner for nearly a decade. Discovered at 19, she became a rising star in the Bad Boy family. But behind the scenes, Cassie says she lived a very different life, one of surveillance, abuse, and fear. Her civil lawsuit wasn't just a legal complaint. It was a story told in brutal, painful detail. And it turned the tide. Cassie's presence in the courtroom, calm, composed, but visibly emotional, carries weight. She's not anonymous. She's not vague. The world knows her face. And now they know her voice. No one saw him coming. Not like this. Known for turning feuds into fuel, 50 has long had a complicated, antagonistic relationship with Diddy. Over the years, he's trolled him on Instagram, made veiled allegations, and mocked him at award shows. But day 3 wasn't a joke. It wasn't a meme. When he walked into that courtroom and aligned himself with Cassie, the entire tone of the trial shifted. 50 is calculated. Strategic. He didn't make this move lightly. He knew the cameras would roll. He knew Diddy would notice. And when he publicly stated, "I believe Cassie," he forced a new narrative into the room. This wasn't just a victim versus a mogul. It was one icon standing against another. Diddy's lawyers are some of the best money can buy, sharp, seasoned, aggressive. Their job is to poke holes in Cassie's story, question her motives, and minimize the damage. Cassie's team, meanwhile, is playing a longer game. They're focused not just on evidence but on public perception. Every word is measured. Every emotion calibrated. And now, with 50 Cent stepping into the ring, both teams are recalibrating their strategies. Because this just became more than a trial. It became a war for the culture. Day 1 began like most high-profile trials do. Tight security, swarms of reporters, protest signs outside the courthouse, and a line of cameras pointed at the front doors. But the moment Diddy stepped into the building, the atmosphere changed. People weren't just there to cover a case. They were there to witness the unraveling of a titan. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Attorneys, media, spectators, a few celebrities trying to keep low profiles. Diddy entered with his legal team, dressed in a muted designer suit, sunglasses off, face stone cold. No entourage. No swagger. Just silence. Then came Cassie. She walked in through a different entrance, flanked by her legal counsel and a few supporters. No theatrics. No tears. Just focused intensity. You could feel the electricity in the room shift. If anyone thought she would be timid or broken, they were wrong. Cassie's attorney wasted no time. The opening statement laid out the core of her claims: emotional, psychological, and physical abuse, manipulation and control that spanned years, and a behind-the-scenes persona of Diddy that the world never saw. She had receipts. She had patterns. And most importantly, she had a timeline. They painted a picture of a young artist trapped in a toxic relationship with a man twice her age, whose power in the industry made it nearly impossible for her to escape without being blacklisted or silenced. Then Diddy's lawyers responded, cool, professional, and sharp. They framed Cassie's allegations as calculated and opportunistic. They questioned the timing. They hinted at a financial motive. They said the entire case was built on revised history and emotional manipulation, not facts. Their goal: dismantle her credibility before she even took the stand. The first few testimonies weren't explosive, but they were deliberate. A former assistant testified about Cassie's limited independence during her relationship with Diddy. A stylist mentioned the strange rules Cassie had to follow: where she could go, who she could talk to, how long she could be out. No direct accusations yet, just dots being placed, waiting to be connected. But the real shift came during a short break, when a reporter overheard Diddy snapping at his legal aid under his breath. "They're playing this too smart," he muttered. It wasn't loud, but it got out. And by the afternoon, it was trending. Day one didn't deliver a knockout punch, but it rattled the foundation. Viewers at home saw a Diddy who looked cornered, visibly sweating as details emerged. Analysts on talk shows began to drop the "if he's guilty" disclaimer. Twitter lit up with threads connecting this trial to earlier whispers and accusations that had been swept under the rug. By the end of the day, the buzz wasn't "what will happen," but "how much worse could this get?" And as everyone filed out of the courtroom, one thing was clear: day one belonged to Cassie. She didn't even need to speak yet. If day one was controlled and strategic, day two was a pressure cooker. The courtroom was still, but underneath, everything was boiling. Diddy walked in with a tighter jaw. He didn't make eye contact with anyone. No nods. No greetings. Just a straight march to his seat, like he was preparing for battle. Cassie arrived minutes later, composed but visibly emotional. She held a small notebook in her hand, flipping it open as soon as she sat. Some speculated she was writing down her thoughts. Others said it was a silent way to maintain control. Either way, it worked. She didn't flinch once. The prosecution called their first key witness, a former bodyguard who had worked for Diddy during the mid-2010s. His testimony changed the temperature of the room. He didn't accuse Diddy of violence directly, but what he did say was damning in its implications. He spoke of tight schedules, limited movement, and a controlled environment Cassie was subjected to. He described nights where Cassie would cry alone in hotel rooms, locked in by Diddy's orders. He mentioned specific incidents where Diddy would order the staff not to speak to her, and moments where he, as security, was forced to look the other way. The defense tried to discredit him, pointing out that he was fired, that he had personal grudges, and that he wasn't privy to private conversations. But the damage was done. His testimony didn't rely on accusations. It relied on observation, and that's what made it stick. Midway through the day, people started to notice something. Diddy wasn't calm anymore. He was clenching and unclenching his fists. His foot was tapping rapidly under the table. Twice, he leaned over to whisper furiously to his attorney. He seemed rattled. And then came the moment that lit up the internet. Diddy rolled his eyes and shook his head dramatically as the witness described a screaming match between Diddy and Cassie in a London hotel room. The judge immediately warned him to control himself. That clip, Diddy being scolded like a misbehaving student, went viral within hours. Just before recess, Cassie's attorney requested permission to read a brief excerpt from her personal journal. The judge allowed it. The room went dead quiet. "I don't know who I am anymore. I'm scared to leave, but more scared to stay. He controls what I wear, who I talk to, when I sleep. Some days, I wake up hoping something bad happens to me, just to make it stop." The courtroom absorbed it in silence. Diddy stared ahead, motionless. No blinking. No movement. This wasn't just legal evidence. It was an emotional bomb. And the blast radius stretched far beyond that courtroom. Day two ended with a media frenzy. Every outlet, from CNN to TMZ, ran headlines about the journal entry. Talk shows debated whether this was the turning point. Lawyers on cable news speculated that jurors might already be forming a mental verdict. More important, the tone of the coverage shifted from speculative to serious. From "what happened" to "how did this go on for so long?" By the end of day two, Diddy still hadn't taken the stand. But his reputation had already begun to crumble, slowly, then all at once. The energy in the courtroom on day three was different. You could feel it walking through the doors: thicker air, quieter chatter, more eyes scanning for something or someone. No one knew what was coming. But everyone felt it. Diddy walked in first. He looked worse than the day before. Same suit, slightly more disheveled. His team tried to maintain a wall of confidence, but even the most casual observers noticed the change. He wasn't talking, wasn't posturing. He was barely holding it together. Cassie entered 10 minutes later, her chin lifted slightly higher. Her expression was unreadable, stoic, focused. She didn't look at Diddy once. Then it happened. Security moved quickly. Cameras inside the building caught the silhouette before the courtroom even saw him. 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson, stepped through the double doors like a man on a mission. Not with swagger, not with a smirk, but with purpose. Real, heavy purpose. Every head turned. Even the judge paused for a beat. Reporters on laptops froze mid-sentence.
And Diddy?
He saw him before anyone else did. The change in his face was instant. Eyes wide, skin pale, mouth slightly open, like the air got sucked out of his lungs. A man who spent his life performing suddenly had no expression to put on. Then the tremble started. His right hand, gripping the edge of the table. He tried to hide it, couldn't. He leaned in to whisper something to his attorney, but his voice cracked. He reached for a water bottle but dropped the cap. Seconds later, his entire body lurched back into the chair. Witnesses in the courtroom say Diddy's face flushed, then drained completely. One reporter described it like watching someone watch their whole empire collapse in real time. The judge called for a recess immediately. Paramedics were brought into the hallway. Diddy didn't faint, but he was close. What happened in those few seconds wasn't medical. It was psychological. The arrival of that man at that moment broke something. While the courtroom was cleared, word got out fast. 50 Cent's legal rep issued a statement to the press within the hour. Curtis Jackson is attending today's session to support Ms. Ventura. He believes her. He believes women should be heard. And he believes accountability in this industry is long overdue. That statement was everywhere within minutes. CNN ran a breaking banner. YouTube exploded. TikTok lit up with clips of the courtroom. Memes, reactions, think pieces, it all went live in real time. But this wasn't trolling. This wasn't a joke. For once, 50 Cent wasn't making fun of Diddy. He was backing Cassie. And that changed everything. To understand why this moment was so seismic, you have to go back. Diddy and 50 Cent have been circling each other for years, trading jabs, interviews, shady Instagram captions. But it was always for entertainment. Always under the umbrella of industry games. Until now, this wasn't showbiz. This was a legal battleground. And when 50 Cent chose this moment, this case, this woman to publicly stand beside, it sent a message to the entire industry. Diddy isn't untouchable anymore. For someone of 50's stature to walk into that courtroom and say, "I believe her," while Diddy sat 20 feet away, that was more than support. It was war. And everyone watching, from A-list celebrities to producers hiding behind NDAs, felt the tremor. After the recess, Diddy didn't speak. He barely moved. His legal team requested to delay the afternoon session, citing a sudden medical concern. The judge granted a short postponement, but warned the court that proceedings would continue that same week. The damage, however, had already been done. Diddy's collapse became the defining image of the trial. And 50 Cent's quiet, powerful presence became the headline. By the end of day 3, two things were clear. Cassie wasn't alone anymore. Diddy wasn't in control of this narrative, not even close. The courtroom never truly recovered from what happened that morning. Even after the recess ended and everyone returned to their seats, the energy was fractured, like a mirror that had already cracked. You could still see the reflection, but the lines were undeniable. Diddy looked smaller. Not physically, but emotionally. The man who had strutted into court on day 1 was gone. What sat there now was someone shaken, unsure, exposed. The judge, clearly trying to bring the room back to order, spoke firmly. "We will proceed with focus and respect for the process," she said, eyes scanning the room like a school principal handling a hallway fight. But the people in the gallery were still buzzing. Quietly, tactfully, but buzzing. Multiple courtroom observers described Diddy as frozen for most of the afternoon. One reporter tweeted, "You could count the number of times Diddy blinked after 50 walked in." Another wrote, "This is no longer a trial. This is history." One sketch artist, known for working major celebrity trials, later told a podcast, "I've drawn murderers, politicians, even mob bosses, but I've never seen a face fall the way his did. It wasn't fear. It was defeat." Cassie, on the other hand, never looked over. Not once. She focused on her legal team, took notes, and occasionally whispered to her attorney. But those in the room say her confidence was different now. Subtle, but steady, like someone who finally realized they weren't the only one fighting. Even the legal teams weren't immune to the ripple effect. Diddy's attorneys exchanged more frequent glances than usual. At one point, his lead counsel requested a sidebar with the judge, something that had only happened once prior in the entire trial. The topic wasn't disclosed, but speculation ran wild. Observers speculated that 50's presence might have triggered concerns about jury bias, media influence, or potential witness intimidation, even though he hadn't spoken a word inside the courtroom. But legally, he had every right to be there. And the judge made no move to eject him. That's what made the moment so devastating. 50 didn't need to say anything. He didn't testify. He didn't raise his hand. All he did was show up, sit down, and let the weight of his presence do the talking. And it worked. By the end of the day, even veteran court reporters were whispering that they'd never seen anything quite like it. Not in celebrity trials. Not in federal cases. Not in Hollywood or Washington. Day 3 had broken the rules. It reminded everyone that power, influence, and loyalty can shift in a single moment, and that sometimes the loudest message is the one you don't have to say out loud. While the courtroom tried to regain its footing, the internet had already taken off at full speed. The moment 50 Cent stepped into that room, before he even sat down, clips, tweets, and reactions began flooding the internet like a dam had burst. And unlike the courtroom, the internet doesn't wait for recess. Someone inside the courthouse managed to snap a grainy, sideways video of 50 Cent walking past the security checkpoint and into the hallway leading to the courtroom. Within minutes, that clip was everywhere. Twitter, or X, depending on what you call it now, lit up. The hashtag Diddy Collapse trended within 30 minutes. Right behind it, hashtag #ICassieBelieve and hashtag 50 walked in. A slowed down, black and white version of 50 Cent entering the building, set to the Avengers theme, racked up over 5 million views in under 2 hours. TikTok creators were already editing the footage into dramatic reenactments, conspiracy breakdowns, and meme compilations. This wasn't just social media commentary. This was public trial by content. Some of the most telling responses came from other celebrities. Meek Mill tweeted and deleted, "Damn, that courtroom clip is wild." Janelle Monáe posted a cryptic tweet, "Survivors are finally being seen. That's all I'll say." Kehlani shared the journal excerpt Cassie's team read in court with the caption, "We believe you. We've always believed you." Other artists stayed quiet, but the silence was just as loud. People noticed who didn't comment, who didn't post, who didn't unfollow Diddy. Screenshots of social media connections became their own form of evidence. The international press grabbed hold fast. In the UK, The Guardian called it the cultural climax of a decades-long power dynamic. In France, Le Monde referred to the courtroom collapse as un simply déchute public. Latin American outlets focused on the support for Cassie, translating her journal excerpt into Spanish and Portuguese as a rallying cry for domestic abuse survivors across borders. What had started as a U.S. celebrity trial had officially gone global. This moment didn't go viral because it was shocking, it went viral because it confirmed what people already suspected. 50 Cent had long been the only public figure willing to challenge Diddy's aura of invincibility. His support flipped the script. For many, it was the emotional permission they needed to believe Cassie without hesitation. And when Diddy faltered, physically, emotionally, publicly, that was it. People weren't watching to see if he'd win. They were watching to see how far he'd fall. This wasn't a meme war. This was a digital reckoning.